If your body just jolted and your mind immediately wondered, "What is wrong with me?" this moment is for you. That sudden internal spike you felt is the exact reason you're here. A sudden spike moves through the body, like an internal jolt that arrives without warning. That surge does not require action, correction, or speed right now. Let the next breath arrive naturally, without pulling it in. Nothing needs to be fixed in this moment. The body is reacting, not failing. Reaction can settle on its own when urgency is removed. Notice the chest without checking it. No measurement. No evaluation. Just allow the muscles there to stop bracing. Breathing is already happening. You do not need to take control of it yet. Let the inhale come in at its current size. Now allow the exhale to leave a little slower than it arrived. Not forced, just slightly longer. A longer exhale sends a clear signal downward through the body. That signal tells the system there is no immediate demand. As that signal moves, pressure begins to lose momentum. Not all at once, just enough to notice a shift. You may still feel activation. That is allowed. Activation does not mean escalation. Stay with the breath exactly as it is. Inhale arrives. Exhale leaves a fraction longer again. This pattern stabilizes internal pressure sensors. Stabilized pressure reduces alarm output. When alarm output drops, urgency loses its fuel. Thoughts no longer need to race to protect you. If the mind tries to jump ahead, do not follow it. There is nothing to solve in the next moment. Bring attention back to the physical rhythm. Air moving in, air moving out more slowly. Each slower exhale increases tolerance to internal sensation. Tolerance tells the nervous system it can stand down. Notice the shoulders. They do not need to lift or hold. Let them settle downward without effort. As shoulders release, the neck follows. As the neck releases, breathing becomes less guarded. Inhale arrives again, steady and ordinary. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. This is not a technique you have to remember. It is a response your body already understands. The heart responds to longer exhales by adjusting rhythm. Rhythm adjustment improves internal stability. With improved stability, the sense of emergency weakens. Weakening urgency allows clarity to remain. Clarity does not require calm thoughts. It only requires that thinking no longer needs to lead. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale comes in without effort. Exhale leaves longer than before. Notice how the body is no longer accelerating. Even if sensation remains, is less than #0. 1 hash is greater than speed has slowed. Slowing is regulation. Regulation prevents spikes from stacking. There is nothing else you need to do right now. No monitoring, no checking. Let attention rest low in the torso, not searching for sensation, just resting there. A resting focus reduces sensory threat signals. Reduced threat signals quiet alert circuits. As alert circuits quiet, breathing stays slower on its own. You do not have to manage it. Inhale arrives again. Exhale remains longer, steady, regulating. This rhythm is the anchor you will return to later. Each time you return here, your system remembers faster. For now, notice the absence of urgency to act. That absence is the signal we are building on. The system is shifting out of surge mode. It recognizes there is no immediate threat. Stay here for one more breath. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, calm, controlled. This regulated state can continue without effort. Nothing needs to end or conclude. This stability reinforces itself, even when attention drifts. For now, let the body remain exactly as it is. If your mind tried to pull you back into checking, you don't have to follow it. Your system is already settling, even while thoughts come and go. The system has already begun settling. Not because you forced it, because pressure was allowed to drop. When pressure drops, signals reorganize on their own. Breath remains the reference point. Inhale arrives at a steady pace. Exhale continues, leaving longer, without strain. That longer exhale keeps baroreceptors engaged. Engagement stabilizes heart rhythm. A stable rhythm reduces internal urgency messaging. Thoughts no longer need to interrupt. If a thought appears, let it pass without tracking. No response is required. Bring attention to the lower ribs. Notice how movement there is less restricted now. Restriction loosens when guarding stops. Guarding stops when threat signals drop. Inhale again, unforced. Exhale leaves slower, maintaining regulation. This pace increases tolerance to sensation. Tolerance prevents escalation loops. Notice the jaw. There is no need to hold it in place. Allow the jaw to rest neutrally. Neutral position lowers facial threat detection. Lower detection quiets the nervous system further. Quiet does not mean dull. It means nothing has to be solved right now. Stay with the breath cycle. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, smooth. This pattern does not need correction. It self-adjusts as signals stabilize. If there is residual tightness, allow it. Allowing prevents secondary tension. Is less than #0. 7 hash is greater than. Secondary tension is what restarts urgency. That is not happening now. Bring attention briefly to the hands. Notice their temperature. No interpretation. Just noticing. Neutral noticing sends a safety signal upward. Safety signals deactivate alert circuits. With alert circuits quiet, the breath deepens slightly on its own. You do not need to guide it. Inhale arrives. Exhale leaves longer again. This repetition builds predictability. Predictability calms the system. Notice how there is no push to hurry. No requirement to reach an outcome. Outcome pressure activates threat response. That pressure is absent now. Let awareness rest in the torso again. Not scanning, not correcting. Resting awareness reduces internal noise. Reduced noise allows steadiness to continue. Inhale remains even. Exhale stays longer, regulating. Heart rhythm, adapts smoothly to this pace. Adaptation improves resilience. Resilience means sensations can be present without urgency. That is the state forming now. Notice the absence of preparation. The body is not getting ready for anything. Preparation would activate alert circuits. They remain inactive. Another breath cycle completes itself. Inhale steady. Exhale longer and controlled. This is the baseline your system remembers. Each return makes it easier to stabilize. If attention drifts, return to the exhale length. Length regulates without effort. Stay here for one more cycle. Inhale arrives. Exhale leaves slowly, signaling safety. The system remains stable as it is. Nothing needs to change. This steadiness reinforces itself, even when attention drifts. Nothing needs to progress. It simply stays available. Even if your attention drifted, stability is still here. Nothing was lost. The system stayed regulated. Stability is now present without effort. That matters more than how sensations feel. When stability is present, sensations lose authority. They can exist without directing behavior. Return attention to the breath again. Inhale arrives at a consistent pace. Exhale continues, leaving longer, regulating. That longer exhale maintains vagal engagement. Engagement keeps internal signals within range. Signals within range do not trigger alarm. Alarm stays inactive. Notice the space around the heart area. Not checking it. Just noticing the absence of bracing. Bracing requires anticipation. Anticipation is no longer present. Inhale arrives again, ordinary and even. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, controlled. This pace improves carbon dioxide tolerance. Improved tolerance reduces air hunger signals. Reduced air hunger quiets urgency. Quiet urgency allows thought to slow naturally. Thought slowing does not mean suppression. It means fewer interruptions. If a thought appears, let it remain unfinished. Unfinished thoughts do not escalate. Bring awareness to the feet briefly. Notice contact with the surface beneath them. Contact anchors orientation. Orientation reduces future projection. With projection reduced, the present moment stabilizes. Stability supports ongoing regulation. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining rhythm. This rhythm does not induce heaviness. It supports alert calm. Nothing needs to be responded to right now. Shock requires sudden change. Nothing sudden is occurring now. Everything is gradual and contained. Notice the face. Muscles remain neutral. Neutral facial tone lowers threat interpretation. Lower interpretation keeps the system quiet. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. Heart rhythm continues adapting to this pace. Adaptation strengthens regulation over time. You are not trying to hold this state. Holding creates tension. Instead, let the system maintain itself. It already knows how. Notice the absence of internal commands. No instruction to hurry. Urgency relies on command signals. Those signals are inactive now. Inhale again, steady and quiet. Exhale longer, regulating pressure. Pressure regulation prevents spike recurrence. Prevention allows confidence to form. This confidence is physical, not mental. Each time you return here, it forms faster. If attention wanders, return to the exhale length. Length is the anchor. Anchoring keeps the system oriented inward without withdrawal. Orientation remains clear. Notice the chest again. Not measuring, not testing. Just noticing that movement is smoother. Smoother movement supports calm circulation. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, even. Circulation stabilizes oxygen delivery. Stable delivery prevents alarm signals. Alarm absence allows the mind to remain present. Presence does not require focus. It requires reduced noise. Noise is decreasing now. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale arrives naturally. Exhale leaves longer, steady. Notice how nothing is pushing forward. Nothing is pulling back. This balance is regulation. It can persist without effort. The system remains stable as it is. This condition reinforces itself even without attention. Nothing needs to move forward. Even if attention drifted, steadiness is still the dominant signal. Nothing took it away. Is less than #0, 7 hash is greater than. This steadiness is now the dominant signal. Other sensations no longer override it. Dominant signals guide the nervous system automatically. There is nothing to manage. Return attention to breathing as a reference, not a task. Inhale arrives evenly. Exhale continues, leaving longer, regulating. That longer exhale maintains pressure balance in the chest and neck. Balanced pressure keeps baroreflex responses stable. Stable responses prevent sudden heart rate shifts. Without sudden shifts, alarm stays offline. Notice how the body is not preparing for anything next. No readiness forms. Readiness would tighten muscles and sharpen attention outward. That pattern is absent. Inhale arrives again, steady and quiet. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. This rhythm keeps carbon dioxide tolerance elevated. Elevated tolerance reduces breath urgency signals. When urgency drops, mental speed follows. Thoughts slow without losing clarity. If the mind attempts to review or analyze, let it pause mid-motion. Incomplete review does not create danger. Bring attention briefly to the upper back. Notice how it is not rigid. Rigidity is a protective response. Protection is not needed here. As protection drops, breathing stays fluid. Fluid breathing sustains regulation. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. Consistency is the signal now. Consistency teaches the system what to expect. When expectation is calm, vigilance decreases. Decreased vigilance reduces scanning. Notice the eyes. They remain open without narrowing or searching. Searching would activate threat circuits. Those circuits remain inactive. Inhale arrives naturally. Exhale leaves longer, steady. Heart rhythm continues adapting smoothly. Smooth adaptation improves heart rate variability. Improved variability increases resilience to sensation. Sensation can exist without reaction. This is the condition your system recognizes. Each return reinforces it faster. Not numbness, not suppression. Clear, grounded presence. Nothing needs to be monitored. If any tightness appears, do not address it. Addressing creates focus pressure. Instead, keep the breath rhythm unchanged. Rhythm resolves tightness indirectly. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, regulating internal pressure. Notice how the abdomen moves without guarding. Guarding would limit motion. Limited motion would increase alarm signals. That is not occurring. With alarm inactive, cognitive urgency cannot restart. There is no fuel for it. Thoughts may still arise. They remain optional. Optional thoughts do not require follow-through. Follow-through is what creates loops. Inhale again, even and quiet. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. This repeated cycle builds a predictable baseline. Baseline stability becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces startle response. Reduced startle keeps muscles relaxed. Notice the arms. They rest without tension. Resting arms signal safety to the nervous system. Safety signals reinforce regulation. Inhale arrives again. Exhale remains longer, regulating continuously. There is no endpoint you are moving toward. This state does not conclude. It remains available even as attention shifts. Nothing drops away. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, calm, controlled. Notice how the system holds itself. No instruction required. This stability strengthens itself without direction. Nothing needs to progress. Even without paying attention, this regulated baseline is already familiar to your system. Nothing needs to be checked. This regulated baseline is now familiar to the system. Familiar signals are trusted. When signals are trusted, vigilance drops further. Dropping vigilance conserves energy. Return to the breath again as a quiet constant. Inhale arrives evenly. Exhale remains longer, is less than #0. 1 is greater than steady, regulating. That longer exhale keeps internal pressure within range. Pressure within range prevents urgency from forming. Urgency requires imbalance. Imbalance is not present now. Notice how the torso moves as a single unit. No segment needs to work harder. When effort equalizes, muscle guarding releases. Release reduces sensory noise. Reduced noise allows clearer perception. Nothing needs to be watched. Inhale again, steady and quiet. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, unforced. This pace continues supporting vagal tone. Improved vagal tone stabilizes emotional response. Stabilized response prevents sudden internal shifts. Nothing spikes here. If sensation appears, let it exist without labeling. Labels reactivate evaluation. Evaluation increases internal pressure. Pressure is what we are reducing. Bring attention to the throat briefly. Notice that it remains open. An open throat supports smooth breathing. Smooth breathing supports steady circulation. Inhale arrives again. Exhale remains longer, regulating. Circulation stabilizes oxygen and carbon dioxide balance. Balanced gases reduce air hunger signals. Without air hunger, the system stays grounded. Grounded systems do not rush. Notice the absence of internal countdowns. Nothing is about to happen. Anticipation would tighten the body. The body remains neutral. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining the same rhythm. Consistency reinforces safety memory. Safety memory reduces future spikes. This is how your system carries regulation forward. Each return strengthens it faster. Notice the lower abdomen. Movement there is smooth and unrestricted. Unrestricted movement prevents pressure buildup. Pressure buildup is what triggers alarm. Alarm remains inactive. The system recognizes stability. Inhale arrives again, calm and even. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. Heart rhythm continues adapting to this pace. Adaptation supports endurance. Endurance allows this state to last, not through effort, through balance. If attention drifts outward, gently return to the exhale length. Length is the regulating signal. Regulating signals do not require monitoring. They work in the background. Notice the spine. It holds without stiffness. Stiffness would indicate readiness. Readiness is unnecessary. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, regulating pressure continuously. The body remains responsive without tension. Responsiveness does not require speed. Speed is absent now. Everything remains within range. This is the condition we maintain. Clear, grounded, available. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale arrives naturally. Exhale leaves longer, calm, steady. Notice how regulation persists without input. Nothing needs to be added. This state reinforces itself without direction. Nothing needs to move forward. Even without doing anything right, this state sustains itself. Nothing is required from you. This state now sustains itself with minimal input. Sustained regulation is the goal. When regulation sustains, effort drops away. Effort is no longer required. Return to the breath as a quiet checkpoint. Inhale arrives evenly. Exhale remains longer, smooth, regulating. That longer exhale continues stabilizing internal pressure signals. Stable pressure keeps urgency inactive. Inactive urgency allows attention to widen slightly. Widening does not mean scanning. It means awareness can rest without narrowing. Resting awareness reduces internal friction. Notice how the body is not bracing against sensation. No resistance forms. Resistance would increase pressure. Pressure remains low. Inhale arrives again, calm and predictable. Exhale leaves longer, maintaining rhythm. This rhythm keeps heart rate variability elevated. Elevated variability supports emotional steadiness. Steadiness allows sensation to pass without meaning. Meaning is what fuels anxiety. If the mind tries to assign meaning, let it pause. Pausing prevents escalation. Bring attention briefly to the mid-back. Notice how it supports the torso without tension. Support without tension signals safety. Safety signals maintain regulation. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, smooth, regulating. This pattern now feels familiar. Familiarity reduces startle response further. Reduced startle prevents sudden spikes. Prevention is already happening. Notice the absence of internal countdowns or deadlines. Nothing needs to happen next. Next step thinking activates urgency. Urgency remains offline. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, calm and controlled. With each cycle, the system confirms stability. Confirmation builds confidence. This confidence is physical. Each return makes it more immediate. Thoughts may continue. They no longer drive the system. Notice how attention can remain present without effort. Presence is the result of regulation. Bring awareness gently to the lower body. Notice contact and support. Support cues the nervous system to remain grounded. Grounded systems do not rush. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. There is no peak to reach here. No endpoint to achieve. This state is functional and usable. It supports clear action when needed. For now, action is unnecessary. Resting stability is enough. Inhale arrives again, smooth and even. Exhale leaves longer, regulating continuously. Notice how the system remains responsive, not shut down. Nothing needs to be monitored. Alert calm allows choice instead of reaction. Choice is available now. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, calm, steady. The body holds this state without instruction. Nothing needs to be added or removed. This stability reinforces itself automatically. Nothing needs to progress. Even if attention drifts, this regulation carries forward without interruption. Nothing resets. This regulation now carries forward without interruption. There is continuity here. Continuity is what prevents relapse into urgency. Nothing has to be restarted. Return to the breath as a steady reference again. Inhale arrives evenly. Exhale continues, leaving longer, regulating. That longer exhale maintains pressure balance through the chest and abdomen. Balanced pressure keeps internal alarms inactive. Inactive alarms allow the system to remain open and responsive, not guarded. Notice how the body is no longer scanning for change. Scanning would sharpen attention outward. Attention remains settled. Settled attention reduces background tension. Inhale arrives again, ordinary and predictable. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, steady. Predictability reinforces safety recognition. Recognized safety stabilizes the nervous system further. Stabilization is cumulative. Each cycle builds on the last. Notice the lower chest and upper abdomen. Movement there remains unforced. Unforced movement prevents pressure accumulation. Accumulated pressure is what triggers urgency. That pattern is not active now. The system recognizes balance. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining the same rhythm. This rhythm keeps carbon dioxide tolerance elevated. Elevated tolerance quiets air hunger signals. Without air hunger, breathing remains calm automatically. No monitoring is required. Notice the absence of internal commentary. No narration is needed. Narration speeds cognition. Cognition remains slow and clear. Bring attention briefly to the shoulders again. They remain dropped in neutral. Neutral shoulders indicate no preparation response. Preparation remains unnecessary. Inhale arrives. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. Heart rhythm continues adapting to this steady pace. Adaptation improves efficiency. Efficiency reduces internal effort signals. Reduced effort prevents fatigue-related anxiety. This is not sedation. It is organized calm. Organized calm allows alert awareness to remain available. Nothing needs to be watched. Notice how the eyes remain steady without narrowing. No focus strain appears. Strain would increase pressure behind the eyes. Pressure remains low. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, controlled. This pattern now functions as your default. Each return makes it more automatic. If a thought attempts to pull attention forward, let it dissolve mid-form. Incomplete thoughts do not create urgency. Urgency relies on completion pressure. That pressure is absent. Bring awareness briefly to the pelvis and hips. Notice how they remain supported. Support signals safety at a foundational level. Foundational safety stabilizes the entire system. Inhale arrives again, even and quiet. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. Nothing needs to deepen here. Depth is unnecessary. Consistency is what maintains regulation. Consistency is already present. Notice the absence of a finish line. There is no endpoint approaching. Endpoint focus creates pressure. Pressure remains regulated. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. This state can coexist with activity later. It does not require isolation. For now, it simply holds. Holding without effort. Notice how the system does not drift or fade. Nothing signals a change. Nothing needs adjustment. This regulation remains the default. Nothing needs to continue. Even if attention drifts completely, this regulated condition remains stable. Nothing needs to be watched. This regulated condition remains stable without monitoring. Stability no longer depends on attention. When attention is free, the system stays balanced. Balance prevents escalation before it starts. Return to the breath as a neutral reference again. Inhale arrives evenly and quietly. Exhale continues leaving longer, regulating. That longer exhale sustains internal pressure equilibrium. Equilibrium keeps urgency signals suppressed. Suppressed urgency does not rebound. There is no stored momentum. Notice how the chest remains open without effort. No lifting, no holding. An open chest supports efficient breathing mechanics. Efficiency reduces cardiovascular strain. Reduced strain prevents alarm interpretation. Alarm interpretation remains offline. Inhale arrives again, steady and predictable. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, controlled. This predictable rhythm continues improving heart rate variability. Improved variability increases adaptability. Adaptability means the body can respond without urgency. Response does not require speed. Notice the absence of internal checking. No scanning for symptoms. Scanning would activate threat evaluation. Evaluation remains inactive. Bring attention briefly to the abdomen again. Movement remains smooth and unguarded. Guarding would restrict motion. Restriction would increase pressure. Pressure remains within range. The system recognizes this as safe. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining regulation. With each cycle, tolerance to sensation increases. Increased tolerance prevents reactive thinking. Reactive thinking depends on discomfort. Discomfort no longer demands action. If a thought arises, allow it to stay incomplete. Completion pressure is unnecessary. Incomplete thoughts do not escalate. They dissolve on their own. Notice the neck and throat. Both remain loose and open. Openness supports smooth airflow. Smooth airflow stabilizes rhythm. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. This rhythm continues reinforcing parasympathetic dominance. Dominance here does not cause heaviness. Nothing needs to be monitored. Orientation remains clear. Notice how the mind is no longer anticipating change. Anticipation would create tension. Tension remains absent. The system stays neutral. Bring awareness briefly to the legs. Notice their weight and support. Support cues safety at a foundational level. Foundational safety stabilizes posture and breath. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. This consistency prevents sudden internal shifts. Sudden shifts are what trigger spikes. Spikes are not forming now. The system remains regulated. Notice the absence of a need to improve this state. Improvement pressure would reintroduce urgency. There is nothing to improve. This condition is functional and stable. Inhale arrives again, calm and even. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. Heart rhythm continues adapting quietly. Adaptation supports sustained calm alertness. Calm alertness allows awareness without strain. Strain is absent. Notice how the eyes remain relaxed without narrowing. No visual tension appears. Visual relaxation reduces cortical arousal. Reduced arousal supports cognitive slowing. Cognitive slowing remains controlled and clear. No fog forms. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, regulating continuously. This state now operates as your default baseline. Each return makes it more immediate. If attention moves elsewhere, regulation remains intact. Nothing drops away. Notice how the system does not prepare for an ending. No completion signal appears. Completion signals would activate readiness. Readiness remains inactive. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, calm and steady. This is sustained regulation in real time. Usable, reliable. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale arrives naturally. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, controlled. The system continues holding this state without effort. This state maintains itself automatically. Nothing needs to be finalized. Even if attention fades completely, this regulation continues in the background. Nothing needs to be maintained. This regulation remains stable as a background condition. It does not require attention to continue. When regulation runs in the background, clarity stays available. Nothing needs to be watched. Return to the breath as a quiet reference once more. Inhale arrives evenly and without effort. Exhale leaves longer, steady, regulating. That longer exhale continues stabilizing internal pressure sensors. Stabilized pressure keeps urgency offline. Offline urgency cannot reassemble. There is no signal for it. Notice how the body is not leaning forward or pulling back. Posture remains neutral. Neutral posture reduces muscular readiness. Reduced readiness keeps alert circuits quiet. Inhale arrives again, smooth and predictable. Exhale remains longer, calm, controlled. This rhythm maintains heart rate variability within a stable range. Stability here supports emotional steadiness. Emotional steadiness allows sensation without reaction. Reaction is unnecessary now. If sensation appears anywhere in the body, let it register and pass. No interpretation follows. Interpretation would add pressure. Pressure remains regulated. Bring awareness briefly to the center of the body. Notice the sense of support there. Support signals safety to the nervous system. Safety maintains this baseline. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. This pace increases tolerance to internal sensation even further. Higher tolerance prevents reflexive thinking. Reflexive thinking requires urgency. Urgency is inactive. Notice how the mind is not scanning the future. No projection forms. Projection would activate planning circuits. Planning is not required right now. Inhale arrives again, calm and even. Exhale leaves longer, smooth. This rhythm keeps the nervous system organized. Organization prevents overload. Overload is what triggers shutdown or escalation. Neither is occurring. Notice the face again. Muscles remain neutral and unguarded. A neutral face lowers sensory threat detection. Lower detection maintains calm alertness. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, regulating continuously. Calm alertness is not fragile. It is resilient. Resilience means this state can hold even if attention shifts. Nothing collapses. Notice how the body is not preparing for an ending. No completion signal appears. Completion signals would activate readiness. Readiness remains inactive. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, calm, steady. This steady cycle continues, reinforcing safety memory. Safety memory reduces future spikes automatically. Automatic regulation does not require belief. It is physiological. Notice the absence of effort in maintaining this state. Effort would indicate imbalance. Imbalance is not present. The system remains within range. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, maintaining regulation. Everything remains clear and usable. No fog forms. Clarity allows choice instead of reaction. Choice is available now. Notice how the body stays responsive without tension. Responsiveness does not mean urgency. Urgency is not required for readiness. The system understands this. Inhale arrives again, even and quiet. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, controlled. This state does not fade with time. It persists as a baseline. Persistence is what allows daily use. This is practical regulation. Notice the absence of internal commentary urging change. Nothing needs improvement. Improvement pressure would reactivate urgency. That pressure is absent. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, maintaining the same pace. This is the condition your system carries forward. Each return makes it easier to access. Stay with one more breath cycle. Inhale arrives naturally. Exhale leaves longer, calm, and steady. The system holds this regulation without instruction. Nothing signals a need to stop. This reinforcement requires no completion. The state remains exactly as it is. This regulated baseline is now fully established. It holds without effort or supervision. Return to the breath again as a quiet reference. Inhale arrives evenly and unforced. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. That longer exhale continues stabilizing internal pressure signals. Stabilized pressure keeps urgency inactive. Inactive urgency does not reassemble later. There is no stored momentum. Notice how the body is not preparing for anything next. No readiness forms. Readiness would tighten muscles and sharpen outward focus. That pattern is absent. Inhale arrives again, steady and predictable. Exhale remains longer, calm, controlled. This rhythm maintains heart rate variability within a stable range. Stable variability supports calm alertness. Calm alertness remains clear and responsive. Not heavy, not dulled. Notice the face once more. Muscles remain neutral and unguarded. A neutral face maintains low threat detection. Low detection keeps the nervous system quiet. Inhale steady. Exhale longer, regulating continuously. This state does not require maintenance. It operates automatically. Automatic regulation prevents future spikes from escalating. Prevention is already in effect. Notice how attention can move without disruption. Regulation remains intact. Nothing drops away when focus shifts. The system holds. Inhale arrives again. Exhale leaves longer, smooth and steady. This breath pattern is now familiar to the body. Familiarity reinforces safety memory. Safety memory reduces future urgency automatically. No reminder is required. Notice the absence of internal commands. No push to act, no pressure to resolve. Resolution pressure is what restarts anxiety. That pressure is absent. Inhale steady again. Exhale longer, calm, controlled. This is a usable, functional state. It supports clear thinking and steady action when needed. For now, action is unnecessary. Stability is sufficient. Notice how the system does not signal an ending. Nothing concludes. This regulated baseline remains available beyond this session. Each time you return, access becomes easier. Inhale arrives evenly and quietly. Exhale leaves longer, smooth, regulating. The body recognizes this state as safe and sustainable. No effort is required to keep it. Remain exactly as you are. Clear, grounded, available.